All right, so we'll be continuing from MCQ number 24. MCQ 24 says, during a recession, many people in a city become unemployed and their incomes fall. Some people can no longer pay the rent on their houses or buy the food they need. What is the effect of the recession in the city? So now, what was absolute poverty and relative poverty? Come on, before solving this MCQ, come on, recall it for me. Absolute poverty was when people do not have enough income to pay for their basic needs, right? And relative poverty is when people are poor relative to other people in the country. Now, they are saying the people have become unemployed and their incomes level are falling and they are not even able to pay their rent or buy the food they require. So what would the effect of this recession be in the city? The absolute poverty and the relative poverty both should have risen, right? Neither they are able to go for buying the basic necessities of life, and obviously there has been a great difference in the disparity. There have been an increase in the disparity of incomes as well. The difference in the income level has also risen. It has to be A. 24 has to be A. All right. All right. 25. The Peruvian government set itself the target of reducing the number of its population in poverty. So it's trying to uplift the people from the poverty level. What change does not indicate that the Peruvian government has made progress towards this target? So out of these options, which option is not indicating that the government has made any improvement towards eradicating poverty or pulling the people out of the poverty level? Which option does not indicate? A rise in employment. If the employment level is increasing, so the people would have been better off. So this would not be the correct option. A rise in life expectancy. The people are now going to live for a longer period of years. So this is an improvement. Better health. So this is not the option, because I think it does not indicate that the government has progressed. Well, increase in the life expectancy shows that the government has progressed. Rise in the employment level shows that the government has progressed. A rise in the level of the adult literacy rate again shows that the government has progressed. So we are left with only option B, which says a rise in the infant mortality rate. You know what was infant mortality rate? The number of deaths per 1,000 live births in a year. So if there has been a rise in the number of deaths per 1,000 live births in a year, this means that the government has not made progress towards reducing the number of its population in poverty. So apart from all those three options, A, C, and D, B is indicating that the government has not progressed. So 25th has to be B. Number 25, B. All right. I hope you've understood it. 26. What is not a reason for the decline in manufacturing industries in developed economies in recent years? So what could not have been a reason towards the contribution of a decline in the manufacturing industries in developed nations? Growth of newly industrialized competitor countries. So if the competitor countries, they are new countries and they are being industrialized, yes, it could have been one of the reasons. They are saying what could not have been a reason. So A could have been a reason. So 26 of A, we will cancel it off. C says rising cost of factor inputs in the steel industry. If the costs are rising, so what would have happened? Yes, manufacturing industries would have been facing difficulties in their production, right? The higher cost of production would have been a problem. So you can chop it off. D says considerable skill shortages as school leavers prefer to work in the service sector. So if you got labor shortages, so then you would have been facing a problem. B says invention of automated production method. So if there would have been automated production method, you would have been better off. So it would not have caused any decline. Instead, it would have been caused the manufacturing industries to be in a favorable situation. So it has to be B. Why? Because A, C, and D can all be a reason for the decline in the manufacturing industries apart from B. Because invention of automated production methods would be in their favor. It would have been causing a favorable situation. Higher production level, more efficient, better quality, less prone to errors, right? 26 has to be B. saving time, more production, higher quality, less prone to errors. 26 has to be B. All right. 27. It talks about BOP. It's easy. 27 says the table shows a country's exports and imports. So they are showing you the trade in goods and the trade in services scenario. Export of goods is $200 million. Import of goods is $190 million. Export of services $35 million and import of services 38. So you can calculate the trade in goods. How? By subtracting the export of goods with the import of goods, 200. Subtract 190 from it, you will be left with a positive $10 million. And now you take out the trade in services. Export of services $35 million, import of services $38 million. In this case, the exports are lesser than the imports, so there has to be a deficit in this case, right? So a negative $3 million. Now you'll calculate the balance of trade. Balance of trade, $10 million. And you'll subtract $3 million from it. So you will be left with a surplus of $7 million. So after calculation, you can say 27 has to be C. So C is the correct answer. All right. Number 28. Country X exports steel to country Y at a price below its cost of production. This has led to a fall in demand for steel produced in country Y. What is a method of trade protection that country Y could use to reduce the imports of steel from country X? Now, as soon as you realize that there are two countries who are trading partners and one country is selling its goods beyond its cost of production, so the first thing that it should come into your mind is dumping, right? What should come into your mind? Dumping. Because when foreign firms are selling below their average cost of production or below their cost of production level, this is known as dumping, and this is an unfair competition. So all the government can do, of the other country can do, is apply anti-dumping tariffs to prevent the other country from doing it. The other three options, which they've all mentioned, is subsidizing the export of steel, revaluing the currency, and increasing the exchange interest rates, will not be a counteraction towards preventing the country-wise action, right? So it has to be A. 28 has to be A. If the country decides to revalue the currency, so what will happen? The exports will get expensive, so it will not be able to compete. But it has nothing to do with preventing country Y from dumping, right? So it has to take an action to prevent country Y. So then it has to go for anti-dumping tariffs. Devaluing the currency would make the country's goods relatively expensive. Increasing the interest rates, if the interest rate is being increased, again, it would have been making difficult for the producers to borrow money. And subsidizing the export of steel would be increasing, talking about the production levels, but there is nothing to do with Y, preventing Y, right? 29. What would increase the demand for a country's currency on the foreign exchange market? So now, what would cause an increase in the demand of a particular country's currency? A decrease in its inward investment. If there is a fall in investment coming into the country, so there would be no rise in the demand. Instead, it would have been falling. So it's negating it. So you can chop A. B says a decrease in its rate of interest. If there is a rate of interest decrease, so the demand for a country's currency would have been falling and not increasing. But in this case, they're asking you for increase, so you can chop B off. D says an increase in imports. So if imports are rising, the country would have been, there would not have been an increase in the demand for the country's currency. Instead, it would have been the opposite one. So 29D is also not correct. C says an increase in its exports. Yes, if there would have been an increase in its exports, D has to do with the supply of the country's currency. If there would have been a rise in your imports, so the supply of your currency would have been increasing. It has nothing to do with the demand for a country's currency. The supply of your currency would have been trading more to get hold of, let's say, dollars if you are buying more imports from US. C says an increase in exports. Yes, when you are exporting more, so there would have been a rise in the demand for your country's currency in the exchange market, right? 29 has to be C. Because more dollars need to be exchanged for Pak rupees if there has been an increase in, let's say, export of mangoes in our country. Get it? All right, I'm glad. 30. Now 30 is easy, but there's a little trick in it. Let me explain you. Now the number 30th says country X has a persistent deficit on the current account of its balance of payment. So there has been consistently being a deficit situation. All right. Which policy measure is most likely to improve this situation? Now they're saying which would be the situation that would have improved the deficit, right? Lowering import quotas, lowering income tax, lowering import tariffs, and lowering export subsidies. So here, what do you think should be the correct option? It has to be A. Now, why A? Lowering import quotas, because over here, it has to be A. But then first, let me explain you why it can't be the other options. If you are lowering income tax, if you are reducing that level of taxation, so people are going to spend more on imports, then the purchasing power will increase, so it will worsen of the situation. So you cannot go for B. Why? Because it would negate the situation, it will worsen of the deficit. Over here, we are trying to reduce the deficit. We are trying to improve the situation. We want to reduce the deficit, or we want to go for a favorable situation in the BOP, right? Surplus, maybe. Lowering import tariffs, if you are going to lower import tariffs, again, you are going to invite for more imports, again, it's going to worsen of the situation. So again, C is also going to be worsening the situation instead of improving it. So neither B nor C would work. Lowering export subsidies. Now, if you have stopped giving export subsidies to your domestic firms, it will worsen the situation because exports would reduce further. So instead of the balance of payment being in a favorable situation, the balance of payment would have been in a worsen of situation. So again, D is also not the situation. Now, A. Now, students say, we don't understand how lowering import taxes, import quotas could be. Although B, C, and D by default and by logic, you've eliminated it, looking at the logic, but lowering import quotas, you see the term is confusing. Lowering import quotas means that you are reducing a quota. What does it mean? It means that fewer goods or services will be allowed into the country. Fewer goods or services will be allowed into the country. This would decrease the expenditure on imports and reduce the BOP deficit. Now you get the point? So quotas was what? Imposing limits on items. So now you are allowing lesser items into your country. So now when you are allowing lesser items to enter your country, you would go for improving the situation of the balance of payment, right? Either the deficit would reduce or it could go into a favorable scenario. In either situation, the option is A, the correct option is A, lowering import quotas. So lowering import quotas means that you are reducing a quota, means that fewer goods or services would now be allowed into the country. I hope it's now clear. 30 has to be A. All right. So this brings us towards the end of this paper. I hope you've all understood. Let me know if you've got any suggestions, which years or which variants you want me to continue with. Meeting you with another exciting paper. Stay tuned. Take care.